You're listening to the AI Moment with me, Jonathan Wagstaff.
Me, Danny Denhard.
And Dan, what are we going to talk about today?
Today we are going to tackle another Mailbag episode. And the question is, many team members don't want to use AI. How do I encourage them? So I think this is one that actually comes up a lot with workshop and hackathon. So Jonathan, do you want to jump in first and tackle this one?
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely agree. I don't think I've done a session, or maybe 9 out of 10 sessions I do, that this question comes up, that there's people for all sorts of reasons. And I think I'm seeing it coming from one of three places. I think one is fear. The question comes up, I don't want to embrace this because it might take my job, or will it take my job? So some people are very wary of getting engaged with it for that reason. The second one is skepticism, which is people saying, well, I tried it once a few months ago and it wasn't very good. And the third one is identity, which is, I've been doing this job 30 years. I don't need this nonsense. So you've got these three different approaches, and I think you've got to identify where the resistance comes from. There is also a fourth one I occasionally see, which is around the ethical or ecological impact of AI. I do occasionally see people saying, well, I understand this is really not a very green technology, so I'm not very happy for that reason. So I think the first thing you've got to do is you've got to start with what's at the root of the skepticism you're facing. And I think if you as an organization say, well, everyone who doesn't like it is lumped into a bucket of kind of AI resistant, that's not the right way to tackle it. I think you've got to work out, what is it? Are they worried about their job? Have they just not tried it properly? Are they overconfident about their own ability? Is it an ecological thing? Start with there. And the way you start to get around it, I think, is to do, as we've talked about on other pods, is like, let's find the pain points for those individuals. Let's find what's wasting their time, or which bits of their jobs are really boring, which bits there is they could hand off or get rid of, and then work on how AI might help with those bits. So, that, because nobody's gonna resist the idea of having a boring task taken away, or having 2 extra hours in their week, which they were currently having to do some dull thing they didn't like. What they resist is feeling like they're having technology forced on them. So I think that the first step for me is, one, identify where they're coming from with their resistance, and two, let's do some work to show where actually it could help that starts to address that pain point. What do you think, Dan?
We could leave the pod right now. I think that was perfect. The flow that I go through, we actually had this in the workshop that we co-ran together, is there's a lot of people that do have resistance and do worry, like you said, around identity and their job. And I think what majority of the time what you should do is lead with transparency. So you should speak to the governance side, you should speak to the protection angle, you should speak to and set the clear objectives and expectations that people have. I think often the risk that the individual risks that come up are well known, and it happens with every tool or every piece of software that's rolled out. So again, you're going to have to build that in. I would then say you have to list out a lot of the problems that people can solve and should be solving, and then how you add on AI to it. So it's not just AI solving the problem, it's how you're using it together to do that. As we've spoken to a number of times, it's around training, getting the most out of the tool, and then using it for clear context, and then actually having a training plan that's created. A lot of individuals who are fearful or don't want to use it have no understanding of it. Like you said, they have fear of it, but they don't have a training plan. And it's a bit like when people go and see a PT, a personal trainer, they personalize it, they make it for them, and they bring out the worries and fears that they have, and then they help to address it and help nudge them and train them in that way. I think we have to take it in that sort of approach to help them most. You do have to invest in the best tools. There are a number of times that people say, oh, I've been given X. We did a whole Copilot episode, or we've been given Y, and it's not the best tool. And that it really doesn't help. So I think you do need to invest in the best tool that's going to help shape your organization. I think you do have to have the internal show and tell, because that brings them on board. You can see how their temperature changes, how their mood changes. And the one bit that we haven't really spoken around before is keeping the quality bar high. So it's not just about more, it's about keeping the quality on people that we're definitely going to keep a high bar, and your quality is going to stay there. If not, it will improve alongside the workathon and hackathons. And then actually incentivize better performance with AI. So the one thing that humans love is an incentivization, and being able to be incentivized to use something or build with something else. And I think that's the way that you help create this safety net around people who don't want to use it or fearful of it.
And I think to that point, I think also, this is a great place to leverage your internal champions. So there will be people who really embrace it and are curious. I mean, yeah, we've talked before, if I do a workshop to 10 people, you can bet 2 of them are all over it and 2 of them have never touched it, and most of the rest are in between. So those people who are all over it and curious and doing interesting things, let them lead by example, put them in touch with your skeptics, that peer influence is probably going to work much better than somebody at the top saying, you must use this. One colleague saying, I've changed what I do with here and I use AI now and it's saved me 3 hours work in an afternoon. That's really going to resonate with somebody else. They're going to be more interesting. And I think also, sometimes that skepticism is healthy, actually. If somebody's coming at you saying, I'm not sure about this, that's a healthy thing to go and address. It sometimes comes from, as we talked about at the top of the show, well, I tried it and it wasn't very good. And again, I probably encourage those people along the lines you talked about. It's like, well, if you tried it 2 years ago, why don't you try it again? Because you'll find it's a lot different and a lot better now. So, come back to it and have another look. There are a couple of things I would say on that.
There's a couple of areas where I know for sure, if you were to ask great managers what they do and great leaders what they do, it's encouragement, it's healthy adoption, it's incentivization, it's reward, and then it's showing people why this is so important, and then creating an environment where people feel safe, but then they feel pushed into areas where they maybe not find themselves or they need that push. So that little cycle that you go through, if you do that with your team members anyway, you'll want to do that with AI. If you're not doing it with your teams or your team members, if you're not creating that environment where they want to be pushed, they want to be incentivized and they want to be rewarded, I think actually what you're doing is you're creating a really bad environment anyway. So that's a bit broader than AI, but I definitely do believe and have this strong recommendation that you have to build that environment. And if you're not building that environment, people just won't adopt it. And that's the only way for most businesses that they're going to make positive change internally.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with your point that that's broader. That's a culture question, right? Which is broader than AI. You've probably got a different cultural question to address if you're finding that. The last thing to say is, as I mentioned, ecology is sometimes the question, or environmental impact is sometimes the question. There's been a lot of press around, the average AI inquiry uses about 8 to 10 times as much energy as a Google search. So people got very excited about that and the data center build out. I'd say a couple of things. One thing I'd say is, as we've talked about throughout just about every pod that we've done, AI saves a lot of time. So even if your AI interactions are 10 times as energy inefficient as Google searches, if you're doing AI for an hour where you were doing Google searches for 10 hours, you're about level, aren't you? It's kind of coming level there. And also, I heard something a while ago, and I must admit, I've not checked if this is true, but I heard somebody talking about, if you look at the amount of energy it takes to make a pair of shoes, that energy is equivalent to like 5 or 10 years worth of AI use. So if you're feeling really bad about the environment and AI, then just buy one less pair of shoes and you've kind of got yourself up on the deal for quite a while to come. So I think the energy and ecology question is not to be sniffed at, but I do think at the moment the press is not as balanced as it might be about, well, okay, even if individual AI inquiries cost more energy, the overall impact is not as bad as it was. And actually, they're all working very hard on energy reduction, so it may be a question that goes away. But that's not to say it isn't a valid issue for some people who bring it to the party. I think we've covered it, Dan. Good to see you, my friend, and I will see you next time.
Thanks for listening today, everyone. If you liked what you heard, please give us a rating and review in any of the podcast players. We have a supporting newsletter, which is aimoment.co.uk, that comes out on Mondays and Fridays with every pod, and we dive a little bit deeper. So please subscribe there. Have a great week, and we'll see you soon.